Hey there, bud. Hey there, everybody. Welcome once again to my channel. I am Warpath Extreme. I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to give you my very first top 10 video. This one, I'm going to cover my top 10 best WCW wrestling pay-per-views for all you WCW fans out there that have watched WCW. This one is for you. Now, before I start, let me remind you that some of the top 10s, that each of these top 10s I own, each of the top 10s on my list are on VHS tapes that I own. I do not own Chi-Town Rumble 89, nor do I own Starrcade 1997, which was mediocre at best, but a decent pay-per-view. And I do not own Superbrawl I or Wrestle War 92, unfortunately. But they are good pay-per-views, I tell you that much. I just don't have them, so they will not be on the list. But they are good pay-per-views anyway. But now here's my top 10 WCW pay-per-views, most of which are actual VHS releases by Turner Home Entertainment, and a couple that were recorded off of onto a blank VHS tape. Hold on a sec, folks. Alright, here we go. Plus, I will also give you a few honorable mentions before I take you to the number one, my number one most favorite VHS of all time. My most favorite WCW pay-per-view of all time, should I say. Now let's get this thing started, shall we? Okay then. Number 10 is Spring Stampede 1994, the inaugural Spring Stampede, which had some classic matches involving the controversial Ric Flair, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat match. It's from the historic Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, Illinois. That you see right there. You will also, there's Vader and Sting on the cover. You will see Sting challenge Ravishing Rick Rude for the International Heavyweight Championship. Also in a brutal bunkhouse match, the Natural Dustin Rhodes against Bunkhouse Buck, aka Jimmy Golden. Also, Vader takes on the Boss, aka Big Bubba. Also, in a Chicago street fight, the Nasty Boys defend the World Tag Team titles against Max Payne and Cactus Jack and a whole lot more. Plus, Flying Brian challenges Lord Steven Regal for the World TV title and a whole lot more. Plus, Johnny B. Bad versus Diamond Dallas Page. And keep in mind, the Sting Vader match and the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Ric Flair match, the Nature Boy, were both exciting matches. They delivered fantastically. Starrcade 1994. The next WCW is at number 10. Number 9. Number 10 was already Spring Stampede. Now it's time to move down to number 9. My number 9 top 10. Number 9 of my top 10 best pay-per-view is Slamboree 1994. This came right after the inaugural Spring Stampede. It had some great wrestling matches. There were a couple of stinkers right there, including I don't know. 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 But the Broad Street Bully match with Dave the Hammer Schultz as the former Philadelphia Flyer from the 1970s was the guest referee, and Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan, the Odd Couple, would team up against the Nasty Boys for the World Tag Team titles. They would win those belts after a fast count. Sting and Vader for the vacant WCW International Heavyweight Championship, and also Ric Flair defending the belt against a mystery opponent who turned out to be Barry Windham. Also, that Legends match between Tully Blanchard of the original Four Horsemen and Terry Funk was a great match, and a dirty one at that. Also, the Lord Steven Regal, the World TV Champion, battling the living legend Larry Zbyszko, was also good. Only it was a non-title match. Johnny B. Bad and Lord Stunning Steve Austin for the World TV title for the United States Heavyweight Championship. It was a decent match, but not quite as good as most of the others. There was also the second annual WCW Hall of Fame featuring featuring the inductees Dick the Bruiser, the Masked Assassin, Harley Race, etc. Other matches I really don't want to talk about right now, but this pay-per-view does get a pass, despite this one the only pay-per-view in my top 10 to be a bit underrated, but a good pay-per-view. It took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by the way, in case you're wondering. The next pay-per-view in my top 10 is at number 8. This one is in a blank VHS. WCW Uncensored 1997. Yeah, this pay-per-view even though it was the third uncensored pay-per-view, it was the first uncensored pay-per-view to have such a positive impact with some great matches. Dean Malenko would defeat Eddie Guerrero for the U.S. title. Of course, Eddie Guerrero was just about to turn heel at that time. But during that time, he tore his pec muscle that kept him out of action for a couple of months. There was a weird strap match between Buff the Stuff Bagwell and his former tag team partner in the American Males, Scotty Riggs. Also, a street fight with Public Enemy and Harlem Heat. That was downright brutal. Also, Rey Mysterio and Prince Iaukea for the Cruiserweight Championship, and a whole lot more. Ultimo Dragon and Psychosis in a great Cruiserweight match. Also, a 3-team triangle match with Battle Royal rules. It's like similar to like a Royal Rumble of some kind, but it's totally different. The three teams consist of, two of which consist of 4 men, like Team Piper, Rowdy Piper, Rowdy Piper, not Ric Flair, but Steve Mongo McMichael, Jeff Jarrett, and Chris Benoit. Team NWO would feature Hollywood Hulk Hogan with Dennis Rodman at his side. Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and the Macho Man Randy Savage. and only three members of WCW: Lex Luger, the Steiners, well, Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner, as a matter of fact, and the Giant, aka the Big Show. Now that what went missing was Rick Steiner, but there was there was no one to help fill in for Rick Steiner, so they had to go without a fourth man. But nonetheless, it was a great pay-per-view, and also Sting made an appearance and did a brutal attack on the NWO by rising from the ceiling, coming down from the ceiling. Wait a minute. Am I forgetting something here? Hold on a sec, folks. There it is. All right, I'm back, folks. Okay, number 7 is Superbrawl II. Featuring such great matches like Flying Brian and Jushin Thunder Liger for the World Light Heavyweight Championship. Also, Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes versus Larry Zbyszko and Stunning Steve Austin. Beautiful Bobby and Arn Anderson, the World Tag Team Champions, defend the belts against the Steiner Brothers. U.S. title match, Ravishing Rick Rude. The champion puts the belt on the line against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And in the main event, Sting challenges his former best friend Lex Luger for the World TV title, for the World Heavyweight title, should I say. And that Sting's second title match may have not been quite as good, but this match did get a pass anyway. Fans were happy to see Sting beat Lex Luger. It would be Lex Luger's last match before leaving WCW to go back to bodybuilding. But then suddenly, during his short period of time, he suffered a motorcycle accident that tore up his arsenal. No, not arsenal. Actually, it was in the forearm. More on that in the near future. Nonetheless, a great pay-per-view, just not on the top of my list. Number 6, Starrcade 1992, the Lethal Lottery Battle Bowl. Well, the Lethal Lottery was kind of weird, but at least the Battle Bowl did deliver. Also, the King of Cable between Sting and Vader also delivered pretty good. Sting and Vader, were awesome. They were awesome. That match was awesome. And also, Ron Simmons successfully defending the World Heavyweight title, the WCW title against Dr. Death Steve Williams. Barry Windham and Flying Brian gave Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Shane Douglas the Unified World Tag Team Champions. a run for their money, but Steamboat and Douglas would retain the tag belts, and a whole lot more. Starrcade 1992. And the Great Muta would go on to win the Battle Bowl despite coming up short in the NWA Championship matchup with Masahiro Chono. Number 5. Great American Bash 1989, the Glory Days. Despite the undercard being a bit weird, except for that Tornado tag match, Texas Tornado match with the Steiners, Rick and Scott in their first pay-per-view match together as a tag team against Kevin Sullivan and Mike Rotunda of the Varsity Club. But the last 4 matches really did deliver. The World TV title with the Great Muta and World TV Champion Sting, despite the match ending in controversy. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Lex Luger for the U.S. Heavyweight Championship. Steamboat was disqualified and Lex Luger would retain the championship. And of course, Steamboat got into a contract dispute with the championship committee. They had to release him. That's why it was his last match in WCW until he came back in 1991. Also the War Games with Dr. Death Steve Williams, the Midnight Express, and the Road Warriors Hawk and Animal against WCW former tag team champions and former U.S. tag team champions, the Fabulous Freebirds, and Michael Hayes, and Jimmy Garvin, and Terry Bam Bam Gordy, teaming up with the Samoan SWAT team of Batu and Samu. And let's not forget the World Heavyweight title match between Terry Funk and World Champion Ric Flair. That short-lived feud started with Terry Funk pile-driven Ric Flair through a table and almost ended his career with a broken neck. That hurt. At Wrestle War 89. Pretty dastardly thing. It ended in a wild war after Ric Flair retained the belt, with Terry Funk and the Great Muta spraying in the eyes of Ric Flair. But then came Sting to the rescue. The brawl would not stop until Muta and Flair have left, until Muta and Funk, I should say, left the arena. It was a bloody and wild one, too. Number 4 is Bash at the Beach 1994. Featuring the main event, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. This would be Hulk Hogan's first, sorry about the glare, folks. This would be the first WCW match for Hulk Hogan and his first title win. Unbelievable. This event took place in Orlando. And you also saw Ricky the Dragon Steamboat take Stunning Steve to the limit for the U.S. title, as did Johnny B. Bad for the World TV title against Lord Steven Regal. However, Regal and Austin would still retain the belts. And many more. Yes, this was Hulk's WCW debut. Not a bad pay-per-view by any means. Number 3, Starrcade 1996. Although there's where you're seeing a lot of some great matches, and the only worst match has to be one with Akira Hokuto and Medusa in the finals of the World women's championship tournament. But DDP and Eddie Guerrero U.S. title match was good, as was the Dean Malenko Ultimo Dragon Cruiserweight title was good. And the Jeff Jarrett Chris Benoit match was, in a no disqualification match, was unbelievably brutal. The Giant and Lex Luger was good. And the one weird match between Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper, the match of the century, the plot did really work. It was a kind of a weird match, but it was also a decent one at that. It featured classic Hogan and Piper based on the war that did not settle the score. Number 2, Great American Bash 1990. Yes, this pay-per-view took place in Baltimore, just like the Great American Bash 1989 and 88 took place in. This one was known for Sting's first ever World Heavyweight Championship win over the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Also had some good tag team action with Doom and the Rock and Roll Express, the Freebirds and the Steiners, and the Southern Boys, Tracy Smothers and Steve Armstrong, against the Midnight Express for the U.S. Tag Team belts. Doom was defending retained the World Tag Team Heavyweight titles, retaining them against the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. Also featuring the debut of Vader. Yes, Big Van Vader. As you can see, this is a blank VHS from its original broadcast, just like Uncensored 1997. It has all the matches, and most of the undercard was pretty ugly. Even the six-man tag team wasn't all that great. It was kind of weird, especially with El Gigante, God bless his soul, also known as Giant Gonzalez. But Sting and Ric Flair for the world title was even more important. What led to this match was when Sting defeated Ric Flair in the final Iron Man singles tournament at Starrcade '89. Then it turned out to be some kind of a jealousy, so the Horsemen turned on Sting, and that very same night in Corpus Christi at the Clash of Champions. And after the program went off the air, they did a brutal attack on his leg, tearing up his patella tendon in his knee, requiring reconstructed surgery. That's what led to this match. Sting would go home with the belt and would hold on to the championship until New Year's 1991, when Ric Flair regained the championship belt back from Sting, and would hold on to that championship until his departure from WCW, going to the WWF. That's Starrcade 19. That's Great American Bash 1990, right there, 1990. Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are at least 4 honorable mentions. Slamboree 1993, the inaugural Slamboree, a Legends reunion, featuring Vader and Davey Boy Smith for the WCW title, a steel cage for the World Tag Team belts with Steamboat and Douglas as the mysterious Dos Hombres against the Hollywood Blondes, Flying Brian and Stunning Steve Austin, and a few matches involving legends as well. Honorable mention number 2, Spring Stampede 1999. Yeah, this would feature the triangle match. Sting, a Hollywood Hogan, DDP, and the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Also, Juventud Guerrero was in action, as well as a Horseman's Revenge with Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko against Raven and Perry Saturn, etc. Also, Juventud Guerrero in an awesome Cruiserweight title match. And Booker T and Scott Steiner for the U.S. title match as well. WCW Hog Wild, the same pay-per-view that would later become Road Wild. It took place in a small town of Sturgis, in the Sturgis Bike Rally, and would also feature Hollywood Hulk Hogan in his first WCW match as a heel. As Hollywood Hogan, he would defeat the Giant for the World Heavyweight title. Rey Mysterio in a successful Cruiserweight title match against the Ultimo Dragon. Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko in an awesome match. Also, Lex Luger and Sting against Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, despite the controversy from the ending. Sturgis, South Dakota. I actually like this pay-per-view. It's just not in our top 10. It's just an honorable mention. There's one more to go. Great American Bash 1997. Featuring Ric Flair, featuring the Outsider, the Ric Flair and Roddy Piper challenging the Outsiders for the World Tag Team titles. Yeah, this is one of the rarest tapes I own, but I'm not here to talk about VHS tapes. Also, a battle of the NFLers, Mongo McMichael and Kevin Green. And Macho Man Randy Savage and Diamond Dallas Page. Savage Page 2. Death match with Chris Benoit and Ming, and a whole lot more. That also a loser leaves town match with Medusa. And Akira Hokuto, title versus career. Many more. And now, time to move on to the number one, my number one of my top 10 best WCW pay-per-views of all time. Bash at the Beach 1996. Why Bash at the Beach 1996? Because this one was best known for Hulk Hogan's heel turn and leading up to the dawning of the New World Order. This was the birth of the New World Order, the NWO, with the three founding members, Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. Also, Ric Flair would defeat Conan with the assist from Nancy Benoit, a.k.a. Woman, with that spiked shoe. Rey Mysterio and Psychosis in a great opening Cruiserweight match, as well as a Cruiserweight Championship match with Dean Malenko successfully defending the Cruiserweight belt against the Disco Inferno. Now keep in mind, Hulk Hogan's heel turn was one of the most important things about Bash at the Beach 1996. When he turned heel and turned on everything that Hulkamania stands for, what wrestling stands for, every Hulkamaniac was heartbroken. They were walking out of the arena crying, but that's what led to the dawning of the NWO that allowed WCW to dominate the World Wrestling Federation for the next 2 years, and then after that it would go down, and that would only go downhill. So yes, Bash at the Beach 1991, number one on my top 10. And that concludes my top 10 best WCW pay-per-views of all time. So don't forget to like or dislike the video, subscribe if you haven't already, turn on notifications, and leave a comment down below. And as always, Warpath Extreme saying, keep the war going. I'll see you later.